Hello and welcome to the second, although it's named number one, Dev Diary for Victoria 3. This time we're going to be talking about pops. Of course, the first Dev Diary was called The Vision, going over the vision of the game and seeing what it is Victoria 3 is all about. And this time we're going to be talking about pops, which is arguably the biggest pillar of the game. So yeah, before I just vomit my opinion without reading anything, let's get into the Dev Diary. Hello everyone, I'm Mikhail, Victoria 3's lead game designer, and oh boy does it feel good to finally say that out loud. Today I have the pleasure to reveal some details about that one feature everyone thinks about when they hear Victoria, the pops. Pops were introduced in the very first Victoria game to represent your country's population. Pop mechanics have since snuck into other Paradox titles like Stellaris and Imperator, but this in-depth population simulation is what Victoria is all about, and we're going to bring you a system with more depth than ever before. Looking forward to it. Yes, in Victoria 3, pops are the country's engine. They work the industries, they pay the taxes, they operate the government institutions, and they fight the wars. They're born, they die, they change occupation, they migrate, and they organize, get angry, and start revolutions. Very cool. Of course, the pop system that we have in Imperator is the one I'm most familiar with. From the looks of it so far, Vicky 3s look way more in-depth than what we have in Imperator. Just massively, just absolutely massively more in-depth. And that certainly suits me just fine. Every pop is visualized, so you can see which demographic sports the best moustache. Note that pop portraits are very much a work in progress, as I assume is the Vicky 3 game website, as the crop is bad. So to get rid of the crop, we'll go over to the Dev Diary on the forums, and we can see that this is a French Catholic clergyman, and he has quite the spiffing moustache. He's obviously a bit secure because he has his tea. I assume this means that he is receiving his needs, and his needs, of course, is tea, because everyone needs tea. Look, just give the tea. Tea is very useful. So, let's move on. You, the player, might be in charge of the country, but you're not in charge of the pops and can't manipulate them directly. Yet everything you do to the country affects them, and they in turn will react in what they perceive to be their own best interests. And I think this is incredibly interesting here. It's not them reacting to what is their best interest, it's what they perceive to be their best interest. Because let's be honest, if the pops only acted in the objective best interest of themselves, it wouldn't be very realistic, because people are kind of stupid. Groups of people even more so. And people don't always act in their best interest. They may think they are, but oftentimes they're not. And, you know, having pops act or react in what they perceive to be their best interest it's much more realistic. It may not change anything, but just that one word being added in the middle of that sentence makes me excited. I wonder if there's going to be any mechanics around that. Who knows? So, a large part of your game will consist of trying to sate your population's appetites for material goods or political reform. But most actions you take aren't to the benefit of every pop in your nation, and by making life better for one part of the population, you may inadvertently upset another demographic. And this is something we saw said in the Wikinomics panel, where they gave the example of prices of goods. If you are the owner of a textile mill and you're making cheap clothes, the price of those clothes is very important. For you as the owner, the price being higher, as long as people are still able to afford and purchase them, is beneficial. But for the pops who are purchasing those clothes, the lower the price, the better it is for them. So definitely the prices on things are a big part of this. Make life better for one over the other is, you know, maybe you're putting a tariff on cheap clothes, meaning that, you know, people are having to pay more for them. And that hurts and helps different parts of your population. It's an interesting dichotomy there. The most important aspect of pops are their professions, which reflects the types of jobs it carries out in the building where they work. A pup's profession determines its social class and can affect its wages, political strength, what other professions it might qualify for, and particularly which political interest groups it's prone to supporting, which we'll hear lots more about in future dev diaries. Lovely stuff. Looking forward to learning about the interest groups. Some of the pop professions you will encounter in Victoria 3 are the aristocrats, the capitalists, bureaucrats, officers, shopkeepers, machinists, labourers, and peasants. Investing into industries that provide job opportunities for the kinds of professions you want to encourage in your country is key to the social building gameplay of Victoria 3. Every variation of profession, culture, religion, and workplace in the world gets its own unique pop. At any given time, this results in many tens of thousands of pops in the world working, migrating, procreating, and agitating. And this is something that I was mixed up on early on. I was under the impression that every single person represented an individual pop. But what a pop is a group of people that have the same set of characteristics. So, profession, culture, religion, and workplace. A single pop might be 100 people, or it might be 2,000 people. If there are enough of the same characteristics, everyone who shares the same characteristics is in that single pop. It's something that I was mixed up on, but yeah, definitely, it's nice to be clarified on. For sure. I don't know if I was alone in making this mistake, but maybe I was, maybe I wasn't, who knows. And again, the cropping on this image is bad, so we'll go back over to the forums and we'll have a look at this. So this is a Turkish Sunni in the state of Diyarbakir. It's the aristocrats that are here. So what we have is the population of these aristocrats inside Diyarbakir. How many are in the workforce? How many are dependents? How much money they have in Diyarbakir, possibly? And then in the country as a whole, which is the Ottoman Empire, there are 244,000 aristocrats. They have their own individual political strength, 1.55 million from the aristocrats, versus in just Diyarbakir they have 39,000. In the Ottoman Empire, aristocrats support local governors, armed forces, Sunni madrasas, and some other interest groups as well. So there's 3 of the interest groups that we can expect to see. This particular pop supports whatever this interest group is. We're not sure, or I'm not personally sure, what this one means, but I'm sure when we get a dev diary on the interest groups, we'll know more then. And we can see, a lot of information about this individual pop. Very nice indeed. I also get a little bit of flavor text here. Wealthy landowners, old money with old connections. As owners of farms and plantations, they contribute some of their profits to the investment pool. Their political interests are represented as the landowners. So the investment pool, we know, is the way that capitalists sort of aid your economy. In Vicky 2, capitalists would build their own factories and you had no control over what they were going to build. In Victoria 3, from what we've heard, what they instead do is pool their profits, or some of their profits, into an investment pool, and then the player can build their own factories from this investment pool. So a little bit more hands-on, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to be annoyed by that. I'm reserving my opinion at the moment. I'm kind of okay with it because laissez-faire in Vic 2 sort of seems like you're locking away a big part of the game from people. So I'm kind of okay with giving the player a bit more control here, even if it is slightly less realistic, perhaps. And I'll just scroll down here so you can see this part as well. Only pops with the adequate wealth can become aristocrats. Potential increases with greater wealth and to a lesser degree literacy. Pops whose culture faces discrimination may face a much longer time in, upgrading to aristocrats. Officers and bureaucrats have a particularly easy time becoming aristocrats. Very cool, very cool. People that make up a pop are distinguished into workforce and dependents. Members of the workforce keep the buildings in the game operational and collect a wage from them in return. Those who cannot or aren't permitted to be officially employed are considered dependents. They collect only small income from odd jobs and government programs. Laws affect who is included in each category. At GameStop, most countries do not accept women working and collecting a wage outside the home, but by reforming laws and governing the rights of women, more dependent pops will enter the workforce over time. By abolishing child labour, the amount of income dependents bring home will decrease, but it will make it easier to educate your populace, increasing their overall literacy. After a bloody war, many dependents of soldiers may be left without sufficient income, and you may decide to institute pensions to help your population recover. As well, if you have seen the interview that Steinwallen did with Mikhail and Martin, then you'll have heard that they are considering adding war wounded as dependents. So not only are the families, I guess, of dead soldiers going to be hurting, and as they are dependents, that you could have an increase in the amount of dependents as soldiers who were wounded come back and can no longer be soldiers. I think that would be a very interesting addition to the game, and I'd love to see how they would implement that. That'd be not cool, not nice, but intriguing and interesting. In short, nothing in your country runs without pops, and everything about your country affects those pops, who in turn provide new opportunities and challenges during your tumultuous journey through the Victorian era and beyond. I have so much more to say, but that's all for this week. You'll hear much more from me in future Dev Diaries. Next week, Martin will return to explain something quite central to the game: capacities. I'm looking forward to seeing what that is all about. But before we do that, let us head on over to the forums once again, hit refresh just in case, and scroll down to the dev comments to see what people are saying. If I give more rights to women, will they start to show up as visual representation of pops, or are they always male no matter what? And that is talking about, of course, these images here. So we're experimenting with a few things. So potentially we'll be seeing female avatars, which would be nice to see. There are two figures for population on the screenshot with a huge discrepancy, talking about this one versus this one here. Of course, I already explained that this is for in the state of Diyarbakir. But yes, the pop depicted is just representing the Turkish Sunni aristocrats who own the subsistence farms in the state of Diyarbakir. All across the Ottoman Empire, there could be dozens or even hundreds of different aristocratic pops of different cultures, religions, states, and workplaces. Are there still summary screens? Yes, we're probably going to be seeing the return of pie charts. My nemesis. Our Thursday is the Dev Diary day for Vicky 3. Unfortunately, yes. I say unfortunately because if you don't know, I am on a podcast every Wednesday that goes over Dev Diaries and talks about them and gives opinions on them and explains them and stuff. And that happens on Wednesdays as a NoCB podcast. There's a link in the description. And Thursdays being the Vicky 3 Dev Diary day is very much not suiting us. But it is what it is. How moddable will pops be? Very moddable. Yeah, I'm sure we're going to be seeing some orcs. I mean, it's people make fantasy mods. It's just what we do. Will a single pop hold one unilateral opinion on a topic, or could it be divided on the issue? So individuals within pops make their own decisions on things like which interest group to back. Lovely stuff. Again, talking about female portraits. Talking about women working outside the home quite a bit in the period. My sense is that cultural structures against women working outside the home began in the very late 19th century and only really applied to upper-class women at first. So, dependents earn an income. This income is less than the workforce earns, but it's still incredibly important to poor pops if there isn't a minimum wage or social program. Also, more liberal countries start with at least some women in the workforce to represent female factory workers, etc. So we're definitely not aiming to simulate all women as housewives. And, I mean, we knew already that dependents earned incomes. I mean, that was if you know that Vicky 3 has dependents, you know that dependents earn income because it's said every single place that dependents are talked about. So I don't know. I don't really understand why these questions get asked. It's like the information's out there, and I'm sure you've seen it. Whatever. And just to expand on that again, apparently. totally accurate, or at least to my knowledge, it's accurate for many European cultures, at least for specific professions. This is one of the reasons we've differentiated between workforce and dependents, rather than men, women, children, seniors, etc. There's too many idiosyncratic cultural variations and cultures changing over the eras to model gender norms correctly in every context. Yeah, like I said, if we have soldiers being wounded becoming dependents, generally 99.9999% recurring for infinity of the soldiers of this period were male. Can't say everyone, because there's probably that one outlier that people will point to. But if they become dependents, obviously that's male dependent. It's not women dependent or child dependent or senior dependent. So definitely, splitting up into this is much more. It's easier to be accurate than doing it this way, I think. Cultures change over the eras to model gender norms correctly in every context. The gameplay effect we're after here is that in the early game, a large number of pops aren't able to contribute to the country's industrialized workforce, can't vote, can't become soldiers, etc. Their meager income is considered to be earned outside the dominant industries and cannot be tracked and taxed by the state, and it's affected by laws like child labor and pension institutions. If the country reforms its views on women, they gain, among other things, greater access to workforce that can work these formal, taxed, often urban professions, but there will always be a lot of dependence in every pop. Yeah, I think this is a really smart way of modeling it, so I'm pretty happy with that explanation. And that is it. That is the last dev comment. I'm sure there will be more, but that is all I personally have time for as well. So, Victoria 3, we are getting dev diaries. I am incredibly excited. I'm incredibly hyped, and I'm sure you can probably tell that if you would like to follow me as I go through these dev diaries, reading them out to you and also giving my own opinion on them and my own insight, then feel free to click the subscribe button, because I will be doing every single dev diary on the day, hopefully, that they come out. And yeah, it should be a good time. So, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to click the like button, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye for now.